All right, cool. What's up, everybody? Welcome to our community call. We're on a roll with these. We've had one literally every week for the past, I don't know, month or something like this. If you have any questions for us, like throughout all of this, as usual, just hop in the community call chatter. We'll answer all of them. We're gonna be a little more free flowing today. I don't think there's any like huge updates or anything like that outside of some cool stuff that we put out this week. On the housekeeping side, we put out 2 blog posts this week that are pretty good. I recommend you check them out. I'm dropping them in the community call chatter thing. We put out one about the benefits of PX CVX for CVX holders, and it basically outlines in decent detail why one might choose to use Pirex outside of just like naked VL CVX. If there's any questions about that, feel free to let us know. But I'm pretty sure it's information that everybody here would kind of already know. It's something we just wanted to put out as we get closer to the unlock next week. The other piece that we put out that was pretty cool is this Hidden Hand's impact on governance piece, and it basically walks through how Hidden Hand has impacted the voting outcomes of various, really a balancer and floor DAO in particular. The stats for balancer are pretty sick. Like if you go through and see when Hidden Hand launched, it had a pretty direct effect on not only the amount of VBAL that was being used in active, but also the total amount of votes that were occurring for certain gauges. Obviously, leaning towards the gauges that had bribes. Everybody wants their money. And on the floor DAO side, it's been pretty productive as well. But that's something Omnia knows a little bit more about than me. So Omnia, maybe you could give a little spiel on how bribes have affected the outcomes of floor DAO as of late, if you're on your mic.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, as far as Florida is concerned, what's been interesting, I think it was pretty crazy to see like the impact, especially with the last vote, and seeing like the 8x in volume, like compared to the core collections vote, which was just 2 weeks prior to the emerging collections vote. And keep in mind, like volume, like in terms of dollar amount, wasn't really the most impressive part. It was just that the adoption kick up was pretty crazy. Now, going into the next emerging collections vote, we're expecting to see a lot more of like a war in terms of bribes, because we do have, like, for example, World Wide Webland, who actually wants to coordinate legally and see if they're able to put up a rather large bribe that they couldn't last time. So overall, just really excited to see how that takes effect in the next vote. But yeah,
Yeah, sick.
was a great show.
Yeah, for sure. And you can kind of see some of these numbers visualized in that blog post as well. So if you're curious about what all of that actually looks like with charts and lines that go up and to the right, then check out the blog post. Okay. That was housekeeping stuff, but we also had a pretty big announcement yesterday that I think most people didn't have much time to dive into, but it's definitely worth covering here. This is this balancer proposal. There's 2 aspects of it, right? There's the proposal or the BIP that Balancer made on their own governance forum. It's titled Incentivize Core Pools and L2 Usage. I will drop that in the community call chatter. Wait, we actually had a question real quick about floor DAO. What is the date for the next floor DAO bribe round? If you want to knock that out real quick, Omnia.
Yeah, we don't have the exact date yet, but we'll be coordinating with the team. They actually told us last week that for the next 3 weeks, they're just going to be basically heads down, like just steady building the product. However, it's usually been at the end of the month, so it's very likely that the next vote could take place at the end of June. However, stay tuned to just get that confirmed with the team. We haven't had that yet.
Cool. So hopefully that answers. But anyway, going back to kind of what I was saying, there's 2 proposals that are worth checking out. There's the BIP that Balancer proposed on their forum, and then there's the discussion post for RibX that we posted on our forum, basically whitelisting Balancer in an updated VBAL HH market. So really what's happening here is that Balancer has decided that they really want to embrace bribes in their ecosystem. And they want to do that exclusively through hidden hand because clearly they're starting to see the benefits of having a thriving hidden hand market. And so they actually came up with this like clever way to do this. And my this is my understanding of it. So if I'm wrong, just go read go read the actual governance post. But essentially, they have all of these pools that are effectively meta pools where you have like wrap staked ETH paired with ETH, RETH paired with ETH, staked Matic paired with Matic, so on and so forth. And the DAO actually collects all of the yield from those assets, and they want to basically redirect that yield into the bribe market to bribe those pools. So the balancer DAO will take a little bit of a cut of the yield, and then all of that yield will get redirected as bribes through hidden hand. And to make this a more fruitful partnership, we're basically working on trying to lower the fee for balancer DAO specifically from 4% to 1%. And basically what that means is that Balancer DAO themselves and just Balancer DAO will pay a smaller 1% fee to pretty much indefinitely route that fee revenue or that yield revenue through hidden hand as bribes. And then everybody else who wants to bribe on Balancer still has to pay the 4%. So it only changes for Balancer DAO. And the reason we might want to do something like this is because why wouldn't you lower a fee to guarantee that revenue stays flowing through hidden hand? Go
Yeah,
ahead, Never.
I mean it's a pretty interesting strategy. Basically, yeah, just a lot of pools and balancer are basically getting subsidized by the fees without actually without actually creating any volume. So you'd have like big bribers like Cream kind of boosting their pool and getting like a crazy APY, but actually adding no value to kind of users since like they're actually not providing any transaction fees towards the rest of the DAO. So this kind of proposal also takes like basically literally all the transaction revenue that like Balancer DAO does, it routes it through Hidden Hand, and then basically you bribes pools that actually have transactions. So
Yeah,
yeah, it basically stops them from getting a Sybil attack from votes, just to farm and dump their BAL, and yeah, we just become a primitive in the whole Balancer like governance,
yeah.
which
This,
is
I
good.
mean, this is such a sick this is such a sick development because it's a huge vote of confidence for hidden hand. Um, to have a project tie themselves so closely to it in such a significant manner. They're basically making hidden hand a part of their, for lack of a better word, like core infrastructure, which is really
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's a small concession to make by lowering fees for them. I mean, if 80% of all revenue from that's the thing that was in the blog, in the post on the forum post, 80% of all revenue getting rerouted back through bribes through Hidden Hand. I think it's just positive for both sides.
Yeah, where we lose money upfront on the fee, I guess we make up for it in total volume over time. So it'll pay for itself very easily, and it's this kind of reliable source of bribe revenue through hidden hand that might otherwise not exist, right? Because right now we're relying on other projects to come in and bribe, whereas Balancer is the ones bribing this directly.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like over the long term, it's like even though it's like not tokens up front, but it's as if like you own 1% of the network, since like all the fees will be rerouted back through Hidden Hand. So over the long term, you would kind of like see us gain ownership of like 1% of the battle.
I think that's actually great points, and like the network effects can't be underestimated either, because such a reputable project like Balance are actually doing things like this and committing this amount of yield revenue to bribing. That's really significant, actually, and it actually helps us solidify product market fit for Hidden Hand, and it kind of sets the standard governance wise across like any other projects that have some sort of interest in doing so, but don't want to be the first to kind of dip their toe, if that makes sense. So the
Yeah,
network effects can be pretty significant.
100%. And XAG asked, do you have estimates on the projected revenue to hidden hand? I don't think we have estimates per se, but I do know that these are some of their more popular pools for sure. So I guess it's all about how much underlying yield those pools are earning. But I think this is something that we can quantify over time. This is like a really recent development, so this is like just kind of unfolded over the past few days as a result of the success they've had throughout Hidden Hand. So I think probably over the next couple of weeks, I don't know, Funky, if this is something that you would be interested in diving into more, but I think we could figure out what the estimates might look like or something like this. What is the volume they're making in fees weekly? I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, so we'll have to do some number crunching. Funky, I saw you unmute, so I didn't know if you wanted to add anything. No? Cool. All right. So this is really awesome. I put the links in the community call chatter, so make sure to go check them out. It's a really interesting development. And then regarding the 1% fee, I think the plan is to do a little bit of a temperature check on the forum over the next day or two or whatever. If we have majority support, then we'll move it to snapshot in the next couple of days for an official vote. So again, this is just for Balancer DAO. We're not lowering the entire Balancer market to a 1% fee. It's just for Balancer DAO. Locking in BAL bribes is huge and a great play on the BAL ecosystem. Yeah, it'll be really sick. Oh, and I forgot to mention, actually, the best part of this is that the bribes are actually paid in USDC. So anybody like benefiting from these bribes is getting paid cash, which is hard to complain about. Any updates on the dashboard development we approved several months ago? I'm actually not in the loop on that. I don't know. Is anybody up here in the loop on the multi-farm dashboard? I'm just not the one managing it, so I don't know.
So yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So like the dashboards in the second phase now, we're seeing some mock-ups of kind of what the UI is going to look like. So progressing well, but still like need to finish this stage and the next stage where we're going to get the actual data into the dashboard. But good progress from the multi-farm guys.
Yeah, so I knew it was coming along, and I think like a little bit of the delay had to do with we were just spending a lot of time making sure the right type of data was being shown. Like some like if you look at like the Olympus one or some other ones that exist, like that data isn't necessarily relevant for Redacted and vice versa. So it was just about getting the data right and seeing what to prioritize, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make sure we get the most relevant data. And it's kind of like a moving target because since we like launched Pirex and Hidden Hand, like there's more and more like metrics that we could show. So we're trying to make sure it's all exhaustive so that once it gets built out, we don't have to go back to them.
Yep, right. Somebody asked, bribes are paid in USDC and not the native token of the protocol bribing like it is. Yeah, so my understanding of all of this is that the bribes are paid in USDC, and this is highlighted in the BIP itself on the Balancer forum. So just to read, I mean, it's only actually one sentence. It just says all bribes would be paid in USDC.
So I mean, pools are generating like transaction fees, right? And it's like paid out with either side. So I mean, it would be ridiculous for them to bribe with 100 tokens or whatever pools they have.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare. And so right now, just to give a brief overview of kind of, it looks like there are about 7 of these, what they're calling core pools, with the opportunity to expand into more of those pools. So it's starting with 7, but it could be, who knows, by the end of the year, it could be 10, it could be 15, 20, so on and so forth. So as Nero was saying, it could get out of control to try to like manage all of that. So it's probably easier to consolidate as USDC and pay out that way. Okay. Is it true that Butterfly is going to L2s? If yes, when and will staking be on L2 as well? I don't think that's a priority at the moment, but Never, maybe you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just spreading your token and protocol too thin, especially at like the current market situation doesn't really make sense, especially when fees aren't that big of a problem anymore on L1. Plus, we're having to see liquidity on like three different or like a couple networks, and then sometimes there's no routing and stuff. So it's just a huge pain for everyone, and just it makes us vulnerable if we just have like 3 like super thin pools instead of one or 2 main ones.
Yeah, so L2 not a super priority, but I mean the thing about L2 is like if and potentially when we expand into those ecosystems, like everybody here will be the first to know, because that'll take a lot of prep work to make sure everybody it's like right. It's not something we would just drop from surprise, I don't think, just because there's a lot of overhead there. I'll wait for a couple other questions. What about Hidden Hand on other L2s? Well, I think that's a little bit different, right? So like there is a little bit more potential to expand Hidden Hand to L2s first, but again, Never might have more insight there.
Yeah, I mean, especially protocols are like the newer gauges on the L2s aren't bribed as much from what we saw. So I expect only like I think on Balancer it was just a WX Matic that on Polygon that was bribed. But like yeah, once these protocols on L2s kind of prove themselves that there is demand for missions and there will be bribes. Yeah, we will be there.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to like capture bribes and stuff on L2 than it is to like port the whole redacted protocol over to V2, like whether it's RO butterfly or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting actually as well is that there is like appetite from potential partners across other chains. It's just finding the right solution. Like, do we use some sort of cross-chain solution for hidden hand? Do we actually deploy the hidden hand contracts, somewhere else? And like Never was saying, it all has to do with the demand, right? I think that we've also been pretty efficient at making sure that we are, well positioned if the demand is there. So in the event that demand across other chains really does grow, I don't see us having a problem being there in, probably the fastest time that you could deploy a bribe market somewhere, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right, any other cues? Oh, wait a second, because this one's definitely more free flowing. We don't have huge updates today.
Wait, why would we ask question do Q&A before we've gone through the whole agenda? So I'm gonna go over
what I was saying, I meant like on hidden hand stuff while we're here, not just full cues. You keep the topics grouped together, KP.
It's fine.
All right, I think we're good. All right, so no more hidden hand questions. So now we could do some Pirex stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I mean, it's pretty amazing just to have 50 people here during this like crazy period, and I mean, it's just been awesome to see the community being really active too. Not going to call anyone out specifically, but we do appreciate you guys. So for Pirex, the three main topics today are convex, expansionary plans for Pirex, and also what our future plans are as far as involving the community more. So on the Pirex convex side of things, we have standard mode releasing soon. It was supposed to be released today, but Greenberg, I mean, yeah, it's been kind of a crazy shitstorm. Everything just became really, I mean, the market, and anyway, yeah, so Greenberg is kind of out of commission a little bit, but I think we're still on track to releasing standard mode today or tomorrow or something at the latest. One thing to be aware of is that all the functionality for Pirex is already available via the contracts. So if anyone wants to say, stake their PX CVX or any of that, then we could help you do that on the contract side of things. But so taking a step back, standard mode is just a UI release. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable you to replicate lock in with convex directly. What that means is you would deposit your CVX and you would be able to redeem your CVX in 17 weeks or less. And at the same time, you'll also be able to get the rewards or votes, and as well as other functionality that we offer too. So that's standard mode. I mean, we call it standard mode because it's like normal mode or standard normal mode. They're interchangeable. And it's for people who want to, don't want to fully commit to Pirex, but still want to access the various offerings that it has, while retaining like a similar experience to convex. So that's standard mode. So in addition to standard mode, which will be released soon, and we're definitely going to have a workshop there, we're also adding a couple new features. So one of them is a curve pool notice. So users who deposit or users with CVX who come to our application, depositing CVX may not always be what's best for the user as much as it would benefit our protocol. For example, when you deposit one CVX, you get one PX CVX. But we want to provide the most value for users. So sometimes swapping CVX for PX CVX from our curve pool might be more favorable for you. So what we're doing is we're comparing the rates, the swap rate, and if there's a more favorable rate, as in for every CVX you swap, for every one CVX you swap on Curve, you get more than one PX CVX back, we'll let you know so that you could, use that option instead. Of course, you'll also be able to deposit if you want to. It's not, mandatory that you swap with Curve, but at the same time, it also helps us maintain our peg. So everyone wins. So if you swap on Curve, you could potentially get more PX CVX, and you would help us maintain that 1-to-1 ratio of CVX to PX CVX. So that's the Curve Pool Notice edition. Next, we're also going to be having an LP intermediary.
Real quick, KP, is that similar to the way that Convex does it for CVX URV? And it's like they show like if 1 inch is like a better option than wrapping directly or whatever I forget whatever it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's more like, yeah. I haven't done that used.
I haven't used it either, but it sounds similar-ish. Just trying to
Yeah,
relate it to
yeah,
something
if
people
that's what
may
they
already be
do.
familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's what they do, then we're going to be doing that too. So we're just going to show a like a pop-up of sorts, and it's going to say you can get 5% more CVX or 5% more PX CVX or something by swapping through our pool.
Yeah,
And
fire. I think it's about the same thing then. So that'll be something
yeah,
that people are definitely used to.
yep, and it's going to be optional. So you could just close out the pop-up and just go, proceed as normal. By depositing your CVX if you want to, but we at least want to provide you that information so that you can make an informed decision.
Dope.
The next edition is an LP intermediary contract. So the cool thing is that, for you, those of you who are familiar with providing liquidity for these pools, is usually when you're an LP, you'll earn. Sometimes there's emissions and other things besides swap fees. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to allow you to LP in our CVX, PX, CVX curve pool and earn the fees and emissions, and as well as be able to collect the rewards associated with PX, CVX. So let's just say you have 1,000 PX, CVX, and it's entitled to like $500 in rewards for a voting round. You'll be able to LP, get all the fees, get the CRV emissions, and also you'll be able to collect the rewards associated with that PX CVX.
Yeah, it's literally it's the highest yielding single staking, not single staking, but like kind of liquid staking farm for convex. I think the CVX staking is only at like 2 to 3%. So if you want to stay liquid and convex, and not want to lock, LPing PX CVX and CVX is probably the highest yielding form.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, so those are the three things to look out for as far as releases in the next few days. Standard mode, the curve pool notice, and actually I take that back. So those first two are already done for the most part, standard mode and the curve pool notice. But the LP intermediary contract is going to have to be audited, so we may not have that for some time. Just because we don't ever want to release any contracts where users deposit funds and just, say YOLO or something. Like we want to make sure we're doing our best effort to protect everybody. Yep. So those are the new additions. So we have like a pretty major event ahead of us on the 22nd or so. Well, around the 22nd, which is next week, and it's the, I guess, 1 month anniversary of the convex mass unlock. So for those of you who are CVX holders in March, there was a mass unlock. So if you locked with CVX, you were immediately unlocked in March, regardless of when your unlock time was. And in order to participate in CVX locking, you had to lock with a new contract. And the reason was because they patched an issue. that since a lot of people locked around that time, that means that around next week, and shortly afterward, there's going to be a lot of CVX unlocking. So we believe that for most people, Pirex is the best locking option. It doesn't make, unless you're someone like Frax, and you're insensitive as to when your CVX unlocks and whether you'll be able to sell it or not, and you want to make use of the votes in order to offset your bribes, then you wouldn't lock with Pyrex. But for most people who are not Frax, which is 99.9% of us, the better option is to lock with Pyrex. And the reason is because you get the same benefits as locking with Convex, which is you lock your CVX, you can redeem it or get it back somehow if you want to, and you'd also be able to collect the bribes, and vote if you wanted to. At the same time, you'll also be able to sell your locked CVX, which is in the form of PX CVX if you wanted to. So you don't really have that option if you lock directly with Convex.
Yeah, and maybe it's now a good time to touch on the fees and stuff too, because I still see people on Twitter bringing up these damn fees as if they're like the end of the world or something like that. So if you don't mind opining for a bit on fees.
Yeah. So yeah, for most people, locking with Pyrex makes the most sense. Okay, so that's the convex side of things. Maybe we should take some questions there.
Or
Anyone has
go on
questions?
about the fees, like
Yeah, I would just talk about the fees a bit again, KP, because like there's still people asking like on Twitter talking about how like the fees are abnormally high or something like this.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought we cleared that up about a week ago, but I guess
Yeah.
we're just gonna have
We
to
just have to keep
addressing
saying it. Yeah,
until
just keep saying it
people
until
get
everybody's
it.
locked in Pyrex.
Yeah. So if the fees were charged and there wasn't any reason for it or any benefit, then yeah, you should definitely ditch Pyrex and FUD us as much as you want. But the reality is we are charging fees, but we're also going to be offering, through other efforts such as the auto compounding partnership that we have with Union, we're going to be getting you a very similar APR, a similar APR as to what you see on the Llama Air Force website. At the same time, your fees are also paying for the ability to exit your position if you want to. Like anyone who complains about fees, what are your thoughts on the fact that your CVX just went from whatever price you entered in to $3? Imagine if you had the ability to sell it, right? Or at least manage your risk somehow. That's what those fees are for. So it's not that we're charging fees because we feel like it. Um, those fees are there for a reason because we're providing some sort of value. And those fees will also be translated into more value because we're able to feed ourselves and survive, right? So anyone who is still stuck on the fee side of things and doesn't consider all the benefits, they're welcome to continue locking with Convex or use any other provider. It's not really a big deal to us. But we know that there's a lot of value that we're providing here. There's going to be a lot more value that we'll continue to be providing and that we'll be adding to the ecosystem. And so we have no problems being transparent about the fees. And yeah, hopefully that, I suppose, is a good, blanket argument for a lot of, the complaints.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I
Thanks,
think
Scott.
like I think that the person that started this discussion about the fees being high or whatever on Twitter was pretty much just misinformed, and was also I don't want to say intentionally misleading, but unintentionally misleading, because if you actually read a conversation that followed on from his original comments, the idea was like, oh well, small holders can get wrecked if they don't hold for at least a month. And it's like, well, okay, like so you're saying under these very strict constraints, like does somebody actually get punished by the fees? Otherwise they benefit massively. Got it. Okay. So I would take like most of the stuff anybody reads on Twitter about some of the stuff with a grain of salt. Most people don't actually take the time to read too deeply into the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, no,
gonna
that's.
add.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was just gonna add that KP said is exactly right. It's like obviously there are fees for providing the value, but there has to be some kind of value capture. The second thing is, some people have try to compare our fees to other products. The kind of fact of the matter is that there is no comparable product in terms of a pure auto compounding token where you get all of the yield into one token and not a number of different tokens. And the last thing is, we're very transparent about it. We're happy to talk about it. All our fees are very clear listed. We're happy to kind of explain all of them. They're all kind of there for a reason. But I think the key thing to take away is that it's easy to compare these fees, which are not exactly comparable because of how other products may do it. Other products provide different services. At the end of the day, I think it's just good to, like SKP was saying, remind yourself what you're getting. If you're getting this like liquid auto-compounding token, and you're getting a better yield. So I think the yield at the end of the day is what's going to speak for itself. That's the kind of number that most people look at. So we have fees, see what the APY is, and judge for yourself.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he's like 100% wrong, because I guess in some, certain scenarios it may not make sense, but yeah, it really depends, because it doesn't matter how small of a holder you are. If you bought a $10 CVX, let's just say you bought one CVX, right? And the fee was like at least 10%. So now you have $9 worth of CVX. Imagine if you saw the market turning over or rolling over, and you're able to sell $8 CVX and it goes down to $3. I mean, were those fees worth it? So I just think there are a lot of things to consider, and it's not as simple as fees bad. I think people need to probably consider a lot of the different, just consider all the different factors. It's just some of these takes are kind of funny because they're very I think it's a great way to great insight to how people think is when they make arguments like that.
Yeah, and basically we're putting up most of kind of like all the guardrails and the collateral up front to basically make the product work, right? So there has to be a kind of an incentive where, the entity that's putting up the capital actually is incentivized to keep a healthy pool, keeping the product and putting up the CVX up front. It's just the way it is, Even if you fork the code, you would, if you don't have kind of like the backing of such a protocol, it's just NGMI like that.
Yeah, and Boxy said bullish on the team being able to eat, and that's exactly right. Nick, did you ask? I think we can address this for everybody too. It's not reading the chat. I know when marketing is cringe, but are we gonna push hard a day or two before the unlock so that people don't auto relock their CVX and say, "Oh shit, I wish I knew about Pirex"? Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons we weren't really pushing super hard early in the month, just because so much drama can happen between the first of the month and the end of the month. Like the 3 Arrows Capital stuff is like a good example of this. So we're purposely kind of back weighting some of the marketing efforts. So like we put out the Pirex blog this week. I will recirculate it on Monday. We also have another content thing going out on Monday. We're doing a Twitter Spaces on Tuesday. And then it would be helpful, if anybody who's on this call or anybody from the community was equally like sort of pushing the same narrative, right? That people should be using Pirex. So like as the unlock gets closer, there's going to be more people on Curve and Convex Twitter talking about it. So don't be afraid to be a fucking reply guy, and like bother the shit out of people. Be like, hey, maybe you should consider locking in Pirex, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's like a big part of it, right? Because at the end of the day, we can only have so much reach, and word of mouth is like the best way to get any product adopted. So as people start ramping up the conversation, as we get closer to Wednesday-ish, just hop into those conversations and show Pirex, because we'll be doing the same.
Yeah. To that reply guy bit, I mean, we welcome criticism and for you to trash us, but if they're good arguments, right? Like we're here to build great products, and that's sometimes it takes dissent in order to do that, but not if it's stuff that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, let's move on to the next part, the Pirex bit. So expansion, just gonna quickly touch on some of the things from our meeting this week. So yeah, what's next? We're currently looking, or we were looking for like one big project that we could really focus our efforts on, which we could apply Pirex's lessons and principles to. That may, at the same time, considering the environment that we're currently in, which is extremely volatile, we can't just go willy-nilly and pick any protocol to, go all out on, because what if it goes to zero, or if it goes to close to zero, it's the same thing. So yeah, that's basically the main thing that we've been thinking about. And so what we've been looking for is a protocol with existing and potential means of generating revenue. Existing being, for example, for Convex, it's Convex's bribes or emissions, and potential revenue drivers being applications for like Pirex applications where users wouldn't mind paying like a small fee. So potential, being revenue drivers that don't exist yet but are possible. And more importantly, those opportunities or that protocol that we're going to be integrating next has to be resilient. Like, will it exist even if things get way worse than they currently are now, which, a lot of prominent people on, crypto Twitter have said that we're not even close to the bottom. So we really need to think about, what if things do get really bad? Of course, it could go, up from here. No one really knows. But if things do get really bad, we want to make sure that the next thing we really, focus deeply on is something that will allow us to like survive through this period. And I think we have found it. So been putting together a document. We're not going to share it right now, I'm sorry, but I think the team is bullish on it, and smart contract development begins next week. So development for Convex is going to continue. That's like mostly on the front end right now. But the contracts are already done for Convex or Pirex Convex. So we're going to be starting the next protocol starting next week. I think it'll probably take around a month or maybe 2 months at max. And then from there, audits will be, let's just say, a month. So in 3 months, we'll have a protocol which we believe to have major potential as far as revenue generation, and at the same time survive even in the worst bear market. So we're really excited. And the best part is it also kind of chains into the next few things that we do also. So that's really exciting. I think that interoperability bit or characteristic of many of the things that we do is really interesting. So that's expansion.
Yeah, somebody's asking about like so there's 2 questions here. Damien asks, are big DAO holders going to use Pirex? And I think you kind of answered that earlier, but can you kind of touch on why, like for some really big holders like Frax, for example, it may not be the best option? And then I'll answer his next question.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's start with Frax. So Frax would not want to use Pirex because there are no fees by just locking directly with the Convex, and they also want the ability to control their votes and also earn bribes at the same time. So if you have a gauge like Frax that you're bribing, when someone votes in your gauge, you get emissions, and it helps them maintain their stablecoin's peg. At the same time, if they're also liquidity providers and they're going to get some of those emissions, if they vote on that gauge themselves with their VLCVX, then they're going to be able to offset the bribe cost because they're getting those emissions, and they could sell it to funnel into the next bribes. That's why they wouldn't want to use Pirex, because they can't do that, at least not right now. And on top of that, they don't. I don't think Frax is going to sell their CVX anytime soon, so they don't really care that their VLCVX is liquid or not. Most people who have gone through this bear market and are CVX holders, regardless of how diehard of a bull you are, if you were given the opportunity to sell, let's just say CVX at $10 and then be able to buy back at $3 or $4 or whatever, you'd probably take it. I mean, just because, unless you're I mean, I don't know. I think people would be lying, or a bull would be lying if they said they would, not be interested in that, right? And that's why I think Pirex makes sense for most people, for even DAOs. Even though a DAO with such large, a DAO that has millions of CVX or hundreds of thousands of CVX, it'll be really hard for them to exit, but at least they'll have the ability to exit. They could do a partial sale through our pool and then OTC the rest. So at the very least, they'll have the ability to sell if they wanted to. And not all DAOs, like us, for example, have a gauge and wait, no, actually we do. But I mean, yeah, well, maybe Funky could touch on that actually, because I'm for us, I mean, specifically our treasury.
Yeah. So like I think like the gauge perspective is like, as we were saying before, it's something that we're working on. Wouldn't say we're too worried about getting the gauge. We've had some good conversations with the Curve team, dialogue with the Convex team. So I think, yeah, the gauge is kind of just we want to make sure that everything's, everything's set up so that when we do put up the vote, it'll be fine. And yeah, like the market situation, we want to make sure that, people are, not focused on their bags becoming worthless, instead they're focused on, voting on the gauge. So we'll have this gauge, and this gauge will allow us to, bootstrap liquidity. And as Never was saying, allow people also to single stake their PXVX and get some good yield on top of that. So yeah, pretty excited about that.
Yeah, thanks, Funky. So yeah, if you're a DAO who doesn't have a gauge and you don't care about the the emissions from your votes, then it would make sense for you to lock with Pyrex. So I just provided two examples. One where, if you're a DAO, you would not want to lock with Pyrex, and an example where you would. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. And I think the overarching point here is like at the end of the day, Pirex isn't a product for like the top 1% of holders. It's a product for maybe like the other 99%, which is just as big, if not bigger, of a total addressable market. So I think it's fine. Okay, and then,
I was gonna say, like,
go ahead, Monkey.
from a DAO perspective, there's still, like, we are talking to DAOs and, talking to them about like the kind of use cases for CVX, and we're also kind of like thinking about different ways we can provide functionality which is kind of more tailored for them. As KP was saying, like, if a DAO has a gauge, like Frax, for example, the most efficient way to use that voting power is to vote on your own gauge. Obviously, you need that POL liquidity in order to get that voting power into your own hands, as opposed to people who are, staking in your own pool. But, one of the biggest, one of the key things about PXCVX is that it's liquid. If a DAO wanted to use it, to sell, like, that's unlikely, but that's a possibility. But also DAOs could, use that PXCVX in other Pirex applications like lending or, future yield, etc. So I think there is a use case for DAOs. I mean, that's the really cool thing about Pirex, right? Is that it's so multifaceted that, a small user can benefit from the auto compounding, the set and forget, whereas a DAO could use it in many different ways, and benefit also from like buying future votes and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a product for everybody.
Yep. And there was like another question about like confirming whether or not somebody like Tetranode or something like this was like a confirmed user. And I think like at the end of the day, it's probably just best not to confirm or deny like who is using what. I mean, it's a very uncertain market. The CVX unlock is a big moment of uncertainty for like the Curve ecosystem. So it would be probably not appropriate to like speculate or like confirm or deny who is going to use what and why and so on and so forth. All we can do is like our best to like promote the product, encourage people to use it. If they use it, amazing. If not, then we have to figure out ways to make it more appealing for people to actually use.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what we can say is, like, we have been talking to DAOs, we have been talking to holders, and as Colton was saying, like, we just have to see what happens after the unlock. Like, the unlock is kind of over. The big unlock is like June 30th, and then there's a smaller unlock, relatively smaller unlock, like the week of like July 7th or something. So, we'll we'll see what happens. But personally, I think Pirex will have some good uptake just because we already seen some good uptake already, and this is from Convex that is like on the market, which is kind of strange because like 50 million CVX is locked right now, so there's not that much going around. But 100,000, okay, not 100,000, but nearing 100,000 is already locked in Pirex, excluding what Redacted's put in.
And just because someone doesn't use Pirex doesn't mean that Pirex is bad. Like there are a lot of reasons why someone would want to use it. For example, but yeah, we have spoken to him. And yeah, I think it was great. But I mean, I'm not gonna let him speak for himself. But I mean, are there any questions
There's some
for?
people typing, so we'll see if we
Okay.
can let them flow in a bit.
Yeah, Pez said, well, we already answered in the channel, but he said, can butterfly holders benefit from the upcoming protocols? And the answer is yes.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the reason why we charge fees, because then like we have to take care of our stakeholders, right? It doesn't go into our pockets. I mean, some of it does because we need to be able to pay for our bills and stuff, but the majority of it goes back to the token holders.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember the sort of new paradigm in which we're building. Like the idea is to make Redacted like a basically a protocol that has protocols built on top of it, right? That all funnel back to itself. So it's to create a huge flywheel effect for our own ecosystem where we capture value in the various areas of DeFi and potentially NFTs, I guess, at this point, where all of that value funnels back into the ecosystem. Joker Frog says, if it takes 3 months to launch a new token on Pirex, does that mean you Butterfly compounder on Pirex is minimum 3 months away? Probably, if not more. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, and the idea is that we need RL Butterfly to be live and thriving and see how people are using it for Pirex or U Butterfly or PX Butterfly to make sense in the first place, right? So like we wouldn't just build the butterfly compounder and all of this stuff if like it didn't make sense to do that. Maybe KP, you have other stuff to add to that as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll type to Joker after too, but just so others could see it. But no, it's not going to take 3 months because RL Butterfly is actually very similar to, like, we're using a fork of the CVX locker contract, so we're really familiar with it. It will not take long to write and get audited. The reason why the next major integration is going to take 3 months is because, well, first off, that's a conservative estimate. Like, we'll always do our best to provide like a general time frame for release. And yeah, and meet it. I mean, I do think we're gonna beat that by a good amount, but I mean, I'm obviously not gonna promise it. But yeah, the reason why it's gonna take that long is because it's completely different from Convex, and we want to make sure it's as secure as possible, and we want to give auditors like a month. So I don't think it's going to take longer than a month to write. But just to be safe, let's just say 2 months, because there may be, new features or new benefits that, we come up with. And like, for example, for Convex, for Pirex, that took, I think, like 5 months, 4 or 5 months. And the reason was because there were so many different changes and benefits that we ended up adding. I mean, there were literally 3 versions of Pyrex, and it just got better every single time, thanks to people like, Joey and from Tribe and stuff, and and working with the guys. I mean, the strategy guys, Percival and Funky.
Yeah, so I guess it's a
yeah,
nuanced question. It's a 2-part question basically. So the first part is that it may or may not take 3 months to launch any new token on Pyrex. It just depends on what the implementation looks like. In the case of PX Butterfly, it wouldn't take long. But the other side of the question is it a minimum of 3 months away? I would say that's probably true, if not more, for Butterfly itself.
We're also,
right?
for PX Butterfly.
yeah, our yield is also
Yeah.
being kind of RL yield will be sold into ETH and or stables, right? For the first few months as we bootstrap it. So an auto compounder is not actually, like, at this current moment of time, not the most beneficial as if you were getting 10 different tokens. Yeah, it's just priorities, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot to build, and we just have to prioritize exactly, where we can make the most impact to keep this thing thriving.
Yeah. And there are other considerations besides just the tech. Like I'm not worried whatsoever about the contracts for PX Butterfly, but yeah, like, you know, uh, Never just said, is that something that is necessary? Because we also have to put out money to have it audited and, all of that. So there's a lot of different things to consider. But and yeah, like if we had to focus on one, let's just say choose PX Butterfly or the next one. I do think the next one is more beneficial to stakeholders, like in a big way than PX Butterfly. So
Cool.
yeah.
Any others? PX Cummies is the next one.
Damn it, he
Alpha
leaked
Leak. Dude,
God.
no shot. He got that right on his first guess. That's crazy.
Oh my god, dude, this is okay. Well, there you go. There you have it. It's PX Cubbies. I was kidding. No,
Dude,
it's not.
I forgot that was actually a token that was pumping it.
I know. We really deserve to go to zero. All of us.
Let me see.
Thanks, Bank.
It's actually up 1.2% on the news that it's the next coin in Pirex.
Are you
So,
serious, dude? We were gonna
Yeah.
accumulate. How could they?
KP's the biggest Cummies whale.
yeah.
I know. I actually turned all my butterfly into cubbies. No, I was kidding. No, it's not cubbies.
I love how this is recorded as well, so it'll be
Yeah,
living
no,
on
it's
YouTube
literally
forever.
archived forever.
Yeah, that's pretty
Can
good.
you repeat that again, KP, just so it's clear? Speak clearly into the mic.
What you
Yeah.
all don't know is I'm actually buying Cummings OTC off 3AC at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh man, they dubbed? No, but yeah, it's no comment. Okay. So Pyrex Convex and Pyrex expansion. So we've covered those. If anyone has any questions, let us know. Next, we're still very bullish on the community's involvement. So I think a few people have already asked, like, could this be built or could that be built for Pyrex? And after we have a chance to really iron everything out, knock out any bugs on the front end and stuff like that, and have a second to breathe. We definitely like to work with more developers because there's with Pyrex there's an ability to directly earn incentives from by being an app developer, because we want to give developers a way to sustain themselves without having to ask for permission. Okay, there is some permissioning because you have to get whitelisted because there may be unseen attack vectors there, but after that you could build whatever you want and earn fees. So we think that's super cool, and we're going to also be releasing more tools and libraries in order to help developers build apps faster and also brainstorm with them and stuff on apps, because we do think there's a lot of non-obvious opportunities available with Pyrex, and we do think it's a dark horse. No one really expects it to be potentially really, really big, but yeah, just really, I don't know, think about what you could do with future yield and stuff like that. I think, we're just going to share it because, yeah, we want to, we have nothing to hide. Okay, some of the things that we don't share are done strategically, because it's not because we're hiding it, it's because we're, being smart, because we don't want to risk, stakeholders by having, someone front run us and stuff like that. But just think about what you could do with future yield. The possibilities are endless. Someone could, if anyone here is an NFT, provider or something, imagine allocating a portion of your mints and accepting, future yield tokens from our users so that they could pay for your product, with earnings that they'll have in the future, because currently they don't have that money, but that would be really interesting. And all of those future yield tokens are actually secured, right? It's not just, fairy dust. You can go and redeem those tokens later. So, yeah, just some ideas.
Dope. And we are at the hour, and I think you and Never have a hard stop. So we will basically wrap it up here. I know there's some lingering questions, but don't worry, everybody. We do this every week, so and we might hang around and answer some of the ones in the chat. So shout out to everybody who tuned in. I'll get the recording up ASAP, and then I'll make sure to share it in the community call chatter. We just knocked out an hour really fast, so thanks again for everybody hopping on. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Later, guys. Thank you, everybody.
See you guys.